The nervous system is the most complicated system inside the human body. It has broken down into two structures: the brain and spinal cord, and nerve endings that allow the entire body to communicate with each other. The nervous system is broken down into two portions: the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. And the peripheral nervous system is also broken down into two: the somatic, which is voluntary and walking and talking, and autonomic, which is involuntary, which helps with digesting and sweating.
So we got the central nervous system. The central nervous system is composed of the brainstem, and the spinal cord. The brain has the cerebrum and the cerebellum. The cerebrum is similar to the skull in that it has four lobes: the frontal, the parietal, temporal, and occipital. These different lobes control different activities of the body. For example, an area of the frontal lobe controls fine motor movement, things like writing. Our cerebellum here is known as the little brain. It coordinates various activities, more of the fine motor skill type, specialized body movements. Our brainstem is what sends signals from our brain to the rest of our body. It's the most primitive organ of the body. It's deep within the brain. That controls things like your cardiac rhythm, your digestive system, and your respiratory system. Inside the skull here is a little gap, and in that gap there is the cerebral spinal fluid. It's a colorless fluid that acts as a cushion for the brain. So if there's any contact in the front or any trauma like that, the cerebral spinal fluid cushions it because the brain is unattached to the skull. More often than not, if a patient is bleeding from the ears, this is the fluid that is leaking. The spinal cord exits through the space in the skull here. That's called the foramen magnum. The spinal cord is an extension of the brain. It has nerve cell bodies. It transmits messages from the brain to the body.
Here we have our peripheral nervous system. These are long fibers that go throughout the body, down the spine, to your legs, arms. There's two portions. You have your somatic nervous system that transmits signals from the brain to the voluntary muscles, and also your digestive system. Then you have your autonomic nervous system, which also splits into two sections. Your sympathetic nervous system, which is a flight response. Your parasympathetic nervous system, which slows down the body, and these need to travel on a road as a signal. Your sensory nervous system, which detects light, heat, motion, pressure, pain, light, taste, smell, and it provides all the info to the brain so that it's aware of its surrounding.
This is the musculoskeletal system, and what the musculoskeletal system is, it gives us form, upright posture, and able to move in the muscles, and it protects all the vital organs in the body. And muscles give the ability to move and manipulate, made possible by contraction and relaxation. Example would be the bicep and tricep movement. The bicep contracts and the tricep relaxes, and just gives that movement that it provides. And there are also 3 different types of muscles and 2 groups of functions they do.
So the 3 groups of muscles in the musculoskeletal system are the skeletal, smooth, and cardiac muscles. The skeletal muscles attach to the bone. That's how they get their name. they form majority of the mass of the body. There's over 600 muscle or skeletal muscles in the body. They are really long and striated, and that's practically all there is for skeletal. For the smooth, they are found within the blood vessels and intestines. Your stomach growling, that is, it's just rhythmic contractions you can't control. An example of smooth muscles would be like your eyes, your lungs, and your bladder. Like I said, you cannot control these contractions. And the third one is your cardiac. The cardiac muscles are found only within the heart. They are like the skeletal muscles, but they're shorter and thicker.
And the two groups of muscles that also go along with the three types, they form the two groups. There's voluntary and involuntary. Involuntary muscles are those not under control by the conscious part of the brain. They respond to nervous impulses of the automatic nervous system. They also include countless short-fibered or smooth muscles, is what they are too. And smooth muscles are internal organs and that control the power of the digestive tract and your intestines. Pupil in the eyes, your heartbeat, heart rhythm, those are involuntary mechanisms that you pretty much almost have no control over. Voluntary muscles are those controlled by the conscious part of the brain, and these are the skeletal muscles that enable the body to move and manipulate itself. And there are more than 600 muscles in the human body, and their fibers are grouped together in sheath of muscle cells. Groups of fibers are bundled together into fascicles, surrounded by a tough sheet of connective tissue to form a muscle group, such as the biceps. Unlike the involuntary muscles, which can remain in a state of contraction for long periods of time without tiring and are capable of sustained rhythmic contractions, the voluntary muscles are rarely subject to fatigue, meaning they can't work too much or too hard, and it takes time to build that over time.